January 16th, 2026, Buddhadhamma. Now we're in the end of the chapter. We're going to read Appendix 1, Appendix 2, Appendix 3, and finally Appendix 4. Chapter 11.12, 11.13, 11.14, and 11.15. Buddhadhamma, Appendix 1. Appendix 1 is the pair of sets of happiness. Appendix 2, threefold happiness, another alternative view. And then Appendix 3 is threefold happiness with sense pleasure, divine happiness, and happiness of the destructions of craving. Finally, Appendix 4, temporary ordination. 11.12, Appendix 1's pair sets of happiness. This is presented in the Anguttara Nikaya. Now, we're going to read it off in Pali and then give the English definition to it. Gihi Sukha, happiness of lay people or happiness of householder. Papa Chitta Sukha, happiness of the renunciant life or happiness of a mendicant. Kama Sukha, sense pleasure or happiness of the renunciant. Nikama Sukha, happiness resulting from a freedom from sensuality and the absence of greed. Upati Sukha, happiness in three planes of existence, happiness adulterated by dukkha, debumaka, mundane happiness. Lokiya Sukha, happiness unadulterated by dukkha, suffering. Nirupati Sukha, transcendent happiness, or Lokutraya Sukha. We have Sava Sukha, happiness leading to mental taints. Or Anna Sava Sukha, happiness free from mental taints, happiness not leading to mental taints. Samisa Sukha, material happiness, or happiness dependent on enticement and consumable objects. This is the cardinal pleasures. Naramisa Sukha, non-material happiness, happiness independent of things consumable. Arya Sukha, happiness of the noble ones. Anarya Sukha, unawakened people happiness, or happiness of the ordinary, mundane. Kakiya Sukha, physical pleasure. Seta Sikha Sukha, mental pleasure. Sapitika Sukha, happiness combined with bliss. Happiness in the first and the second concentration, meditation, absorption. Nipitika Sukha, happiness not combined with piti sukha, with bliss, or happiness in the third and the fourth concentration, meditation, absorption, jhana. Satta Sukha, delightful happiness. Now, the commentaries state that this refers to the happiness in the first three concentration, meditation, absorption, jhana. And happiness resulting from equanimity, sukha or upeka sukha. Happiness when the mind is in the complete state of balance, is neutral and objective, ready to discern the truth and discriminate correctly, just as a wise person would observe events from a distance. The commentary states that this refers to the happiness in the fourth, concentration, meditation, absorption of jhana. Now it is noteworthy here that equanimity, upeka, in the pair sets of happiness is not the same as neutral sensation, upeka vedana. Samadhi sukha, happiness resulting from concentration, either access or attainment concentration. And then we have asamadhi sukha, happiness without concentration. Sappati karamana sukha, happiness arising for one who contemplates the first two jhanas, concentration, meditation, absorption, comprised of piti, bliss, and nipiti karamana sukha, happiness arising for one who contemplates the third and the fourth jhanas, divested of piti. Happiness arising for one who contemplates the first three jhanas, comprising of pleasure, sattha ramana sukha. And happiness arising for one who contemplates the fourth jhana, comprised of equanimity, upeka ramana sukha. The last pair is rupa ramana sukha, happiness with materiality as its foundation. Happiness with fine material jhana as its foundation. Then arupa ramana sukha, happiness with immateriality at its foundation. Happiness with the formless jhanas as its foundation. Now, after each of these pairs, there is the statement that the latter kind of happiness is superior and more excellent than the former. It's good to note that in the Dipitaka, it has a lot of pairs and aspects, and then it moves to the other aspects. So it could be the positive and the negative, and then the neutral. In this case of happiness, we have the positive and negative. Atinawa, the negative, asata, the positive aspects. Or we could classify it as the advantages and disadvantages of it. Atinawa would be the disadvantages. Asawa is the advantages of it. And that could be in any context as we analyze the causal relationship of causes and conditions of certain states of arisen phenomenon, and so forth. That's the end of Appendix 1. Appendix 2, 11.13. Threefold happiness. This is another alternative model. The Samyutta Nikaya contains another classification of sukha, happiness, that is very similar to the one discussed in the beginning of this chapter. We have kama sukha, jhana sukha, and nirota samapati sukha. This is likewise the threefold division. Now, the first one is kama sukha or samisa sukha, happiness dependent on material things. This is equivalent to the sense pleasure. So samisa sukha is equivalent to kama sukha, sense pleasure, because samisa sukha is the happiness dependent on something that's consumable, so material things. And we have nara misa sukha. This refers to the happiness of the first three: concentration, meditation, absorptions, the material and the immaterial. But for the immaterial aspect, the non-material happiness. The third division is happiness exceeding and transcending of non-material happiness. Nara mi sattara sukha. This refers to the happiness and joy experienced by one whose mind is free from mental taints. Kina sawa. Who reflects on the mind liberated from greed, liberated from hatred, and liberated from delusion. The commentaries claim that although the third kind of happiness is technically mundane, lokiya, it can be described as the happiness resulting from Arihat's knowledge of reviewing. Pachavekanana. It is superior to the second kind of happiness, which may be either mundane or transcendent. Lokutaraya. It is transcendent when it refers to jhana of an awakened person. So contemplation, meditation, absorption. The two classifications of happiness are almost the same because they have a similarity in the scope. Now, Satmisa Sukha is equivalent to Kama Sukha. Satmisa Sukha is the happiness derived from material things. And Kama Sukha is anything with sense pleasures. Niramisa Sukha is the part of domain of Jhana Sukha. And Naramisa Sattara Sukha goes beyond the transcend Jhana Sukha. The important difference between these two classifications between the first group, Kama Sukha, Jhana Sukha, Nirota Samapatti Sukha, encompasses all forms of happiness, both that which is sensation, vedana, and that which is not. The factors of the second group, Samisa Sukha, Naramisa Sukha, and Narami Sattara Sukha, however, are all included in happiness that is a sensation. Therefore, the highest form of non-material happiness, Naramisa Sukha, which is part of the third concentration meditation of absorption of the non-material jhana, does not cover all forms of jhana sukha. In reference to the fourth, jhana, the distinction term naramisa upekha is used. This term is also used in reference to the formless jhanas, arupa jhana, because technically they are part of the fourth jhana. A clear distinction can be made between nirota samapatti sukha and narami sattara sukha. Although Nirota Samapatti Sukha goes beyond jhana, it still pertains to a meditative attainment, Samapatti, and is only accessible by those arihats and non-returners, proficient in the 8 jhanas. Nara mi sattara sukha here refers to the happiness resulting from the knowledge of reviewing. It refers only to arihats, who can either be those liberated both ways, upato pacha vimutta, and who is liberated by wisdom, panya vimutta. They have not reached the 8 concentration of attainments. In any case, by focus on the literal meaning of the term nirota samapatti sukha, should in some respects also be classified as happiness exceeding non-material happiness. The end of Appendix 2. 11.14, Appendix 3. Threefold happiness, sense pleasure, divine happiness, and the happiness of the destruction of tanha, craving. The elimination of craving. Now, sense pleasure has already been described at length. Divine happiness, however, is defined in the commentaries as happiness of jhana. Jhana is the concentration, meditation, absorption, either the fine or non-fine material attainments. Specifically, the happiness of the mundane concentration, absorption. Lokiya jhana sukha. The commentaries evaluate or equate divine happiness as jhanistic happiness because they determine jhana to be a divine abiding, dipa vihara, in accord to the teaching of the Dika Nikaya. The commentary to the Dika Nikaya states that divine happiness refers to the 8 concentration, meditation, absorption. The ordinary celestial pleasures of the divine beings is already included in the factor of kama sukha, sense pleasure. Happiness of the destruction of craving, tanha kataya sukha, refers to the happiness of nipita sukha, nibbana sukha, as the term tanha kataya is a synonym for nibbita. The commentaries of Uttana, however, interprets tanha kataya sukha to be the happiness of the fruitation attainments, bala samapati sukha, which is accessible to all awakened beings from stream enterers upwards through the establishment or establishing nibbita as one's object of attention. Here I use the term tanhankataya sukha in a broad sense, encompassing the happiness of fruitation of attainments, the happiness of the attainment of cessation, nirota samapati, a state resembling nibbita, and the happiness of liberation, vimutti sukha, which is frequently referred to in the Dipitaka. Vimutti sukha refers to the highest fruitation of bala samapati, which is the domain of the arihats. This classification is similar to the 10-fold classification of happiness above. The most detailed classification of sukha, happiness, in the commentaries is found in the commentaries of the Anguttara Nikaya, which divides happiness into 7 levels. Human happiness, manusara sukha; divine happiness, diya sukha; jhanistic happiness, the happiness of insight, vipassana sukha; the happiness of the path, magga sukha; fruitation happiness, bala sukha; and the happiness of nibbana. The 7 kinds of happiness can be condensed into 4. Kama sukha, sense pleasure, including human happiness and divine happiness, the latter referring specifically to the pleasure experienced by celestial beings or happiness of the heavenly realms. Jhana sukha, happiness of jhana, the happiness of mundane concentration of attainments. Lokiya jhana sukha, lokiya samapati sukha. In some places, this refers to as divine happiness. Diya sukha, in the sense of being a divine abiding. Dipa vihara, happiness of insight meditation. Vipassana sukha. This appears clearly as one of the 10 imperfections of insight. Vipassana nupa kilesa. Lokutaraya sukha, path happiness. This is transcendent happiness. Magga sukha, fruitless happiness. Bala sukha, and the happiness of nibbana or nibbita. The term bala sukha, the fruit happiness, bala samapati sukha, which itself incorporates vimutti sukha as well. The end of Appendix 3. Now, lastly, Appendix 4, temporary ordination. 11:15. In Thailand, in Laos, in Cambodia, in Myanmar, in Burma, there is a custom referred to as ordination for study. Besides providing an opportunity for those who are prepared to train themselves in order to experience more refined form of happiness. This kind of ordination is a way of providing an education to the wider population by offering a training to young people in the areas of academic knowledge, ethics, and cultural traditions. It is a rite of passage, a means for preparing people to enter society as adults. Most of these individuals are ordained while still young. In the case of novice monks, they are still children and do so because the wishes of their guardians. After they have been ordained and receive an adequate level of training, they can voluntarily decide by themselves whether to continue as monks or return to the household life with the full acceptance by the wider society. During the time of being ordained, these individuals are aware that they have entered a system of training. If they're not ready, dedicated to this way of life, they can train for a short period of time and then stop. This way, they can accept the conditions for what they are. Some of these individuals who are prepared for a long-term commitment to the renunciant life or the life of a renunciant may devote themselves earnestly to the training for a fixed period of time. Training with the kind of acceptance can lead to good results. It prevents the harm of feeling that one is subject to compulsion and confinement, which would lead to struggle against the form. If there are disadvantages to this kind of training, they are minimalized. If one wishes to preserve this kind of ordination for study, then one must give people the freedom and liberty to disrobe when they wish. This is a fair treatment to those individuals, and it will benefit the wider society. That's the end of chapter 11.